So, on my last video, one of them anyway, where I mockingly said that Putin is fighting the cabal, I got one comment that stated that not everything is black and white. And I wholeheartedly agree, right? I've never stated that everything is black and white. So that's a strawman argument. It's no argument at all. And, if you don't like what I had to say in that video, debunk it, address it, provide a different view. It's cool, right? Saying not everything is black and white, which, by the way, I never stated it is, and as I do agree with that statement, that's essentially meaningless. Sorry. So, the reason why I made that video is because, to me, this whole Putin fighting the cabal thing is ludicrous, right? And it reminds me of what Hitler was allegedly doing, right? Um, Chasing the Jewish people out of Nazi Germany, right? And relocating them into Israel, right? If it wasn't for Hitler, insofar as we know, Israel wouldn't exist. He signed all the documents and made a pact with his Saxon buddies, the Anglo ones, right? It's the same people, duh. They speak the same language essentially, right? If the Slavs, like Russians and Poles with Ukrainians in between, right, speak essentially the same, it's in the same family of languages, their languages are, right? The same could be said for Germans, the French to a certain degree, right? Did they fight in the war? No, they just lied down, right? The Swiss to a large degree, right? The neutral Swiss who held everybody's money. And, basically everything north of Germany, right? It's the same people. Now, I'm not talking about, the rank and file, even though I am, right? It is genetically, right? If you're, anyway, long fucking story. It's the same group of people, more or less, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that they agree on everything, but it's likely that the elites in those countries, they have a similar goal in mind on the grand scheme of things, right? And they probably disagree with the people on the other side, seeing as they've been fighting over Central and Eastern Europe for shit, hundreds of years now, right? Anyway, so, I was making fun of this ludicrous idea that Putin is chasing, the cabal out of Ukraine because, well, his mama Jewish. Now, look, all of this could be fake, right? All of this could be fake. Why did he change his name? Why? Right? Is it because he's a converso? And I know he's pro-Russian Orthodoxy and wants to make it, at least he says he does, wants to make it a state religion. But if you really dig deep into who, at least in the past, used to advise Putin, and see, this is the thing I don't want to fucking get into, because like these rabbit holes go on forever, people. But just for a second, and I think he's probably to this day influenced, and not to say that he likes the guy and agrees with everything he has to say, but it's likely that he's still to this day being advised by Alexander Dugin, right? A fucking neo-Nazi who believes they can use orthodoxy to unite the people. I'm not saying I agree with this, but this is what he believes, and he likes Christian Orthodoxy, the Russian Orthodox Church, because he likens it to paganism. He thinks there's a lot of parallels there. I know Russian Orthodox people will, for the most part, disagree. I understand that, but it's not about what you think, right? Obviously. So they think they can use, this Dugin guy thinks he can use Russian Orthodoxy to unite the people and brainwash them with some kind of, I don't know the details exactly, weird Eastern mysticism and just a different value system, right? Than what the West believes in. This has always been the case, right? Whether you used religion, however misinterpret it, right, for your goals and purposes, whether you used religion or replaced it with some other kind of ideology, every state, right, in order to cohere and, at least in the minds of the people, to stay together, united, needs some kind of central ideology, right? So is that why Putin is, you know, on the one hand, pro-Russian orthodoxy for his people because he was advised that this would, help him out, right? To get his political goals? Probably, right? So is he really some kind of like conservative pro-Christian kind of a guy? Yeah, I'm sure there's something about that worldview that appeals to him, right? But at the same time, he seems to be playing both sides. And if his mama's Jewish and daddy's Christian, then it would make sense. And at the end of the day, it's maybe what unites all of those is Abraham and some kind of, secret Kabbalistic teachings that aren't really in the mainstream or for the mainstream, right? Maybe at the end of the day, this is why all these people agree, because they mass produce a certain kind of religion for the masses. And behind closed doors, they have another version thereof, right? Like all these dumb Ma's out there talking about the Jew man, running the world, this and that, right? They're not talking about the rank and file. To them, they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about. They're talking about just anyone that has a Jewish last name, even though 90% of those so-called Jewish last names are German. Gee. Wouldn't it make more sense to talk about Germans or Anglo-Saxons or Saxons in general, all of them? Wouldn't it? Well, right? I guess not. But, there are, for example, and look, I'm no expert on this shit, but if you take the Rosicrucian order, right? They're Christian, technically, I guess, but they're Christian Kabbalists, right? So whatever they believe, their worldview, ideology, their religious practices are probably very much in line with the Jewish Kabbalists, right? And then you have Kabbalah in Islam too, right? So they mass produce or interpret or allow to exist this religion for the masses, right? And I'm not taking sides of saying that this or that religion is right or wrong. No, I'm just trying to be as objective as possible here. But behind closed doors, they all meet and agree on a certain different worldview, right? Like, it's not, if you ask the average Jewish person or Christian or the average Muslim, not these crazy Muslims, right? But the rank and file, most of them, they'll tell you that war is wrong. Killing people is wrong, right? Well, clearly these world leaders don't believe the same shit, do they? Like, how is this so difficult to understand? People are fucking brainwashed, especially people on the right. So, we could delve so deeply into what is going on here insofar as the geopolitics and try to explain why Putin has been so friendly to Israel, right? Because he's a politician, this and that, and that's the only way you could maybe in your own little head rectify or explain to yourself why there's all these seemingly contradictory things going on with someone like Putin, right? Who is he really? What is he doing? Well, it's 4D chess he's playing. Duh. He's just too stupid to understand. This is how these people can explain to themselves, quote unquote, explain to themselves and the world around them, and justify why these evil, demented, dark forces, how they're somehow forces for good. You really have to go down these stupid ass rabbit holes when you could just look at the big picture, right? Did Putin mandate the vaccine? What about vax passports? Oh, just like the rest of the world, basically? Okay. Does he really give a fuck about human freedom? But that's the rhetoric. It's the same thing the West has been doing, pushing this freedom and democracy and liberty rhetoric while taking away your freedoms. And it's the same thing that Putin is doing, right? So whatever their little games actually consist of, what exactly they agree on or not behind closed doors, insofar as how to divide this world and who in the end will, be the ruler of them all. Like, fuck all of that. None of that matters to us. You don't have any influence over that. This is why I said it doesn't matter if Russia takes over Ukraine. What does it matter whether it's a Russian or a Ukrainian muzzling them and forcibly injecting them with unknown substances? Why does it matter to them, right? Well, it matters because nationalism, right? But at one point, Belarus, large parts of Ukraine, and Poland were all one country. How come that nationalism doesn't exist anymore? How come all the Ukrainians don't agree on the same type of kind of nationalism inside of Ukraine, right? This thing you guys call nationalism these days is nothing but a fucking corporate identity used to brainwash you and to fulfill these motherfuckers' goals. Let me take a sip of my coffee, man. So we could go down these rabbit holes, and if you want to go down one interesting rabbit hole, look up Alexander Dugin. See what he's all about, right? Fascism. Nazi. Putin, who's advised by a neo-fascist kind of a character, or used to be anyway, is fighting neo-Nazis in Ukraine, right? Well, he probably put them there, or was instrumental in putting them there, or stoking this sort of nonsense going on so that he could have an excuse to go in, right? Ultimately, all these fucking people are Nazis, commies, whatever the fuck you want to call them. They're authoritarians looking to, well, rape you with that needle. Why should anything else, that should be your primary concern. So, this one channel that I don't really watch what they have to say, because it's a bunch of quote-unquote conservative sheep, right? But like, I commented on one of his videos and showing him proof that Putin is working with, insofar as we know, right, working with Klaus Schwab, right? Some people, the alt-righters say is Jewish because, like, does this matter to you? Or when it's convenient, it doesn't matter to you? Like, which is it? Right? But anyway, what else is Klaus Schwab, right? He's a German or Austrian, whatever, right? Same thing. He's a Saxon, right? He's from, I mean, if Hitler spoke English, that's probably what he would sound like, right? Anyway, so this channel linked to this video because, it was so great, awesome, and amazing, right? Even after I provided them with proof that Putin is most likely working with Klaus Schwab, right? And they seemed concerned and like, I didn't know, this is very interesting, blah, 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 right? They've completely, ever since then, they've completely ignored that, insofar as I can tell, or didn't make it, that important. Prior to this whole war, right? And this is how fucking brainwashed people are. How easy it is to see, right? Prior to this war, be it, let's just stick to the so-called conservatives, right? COVID, everything was COVID. And then the mainstream said, no more COVID, right? We have war now. And what are these people? They're just war, completely ignoring COVID and the context, right? Very, very important context there. Not making the connection, refusing to. They're sheep. They are fucking sheep. Obviously. Another sip. God damn. Right? So, like, you can go check out this analysis if you want, and it'll sound very good to a lot of you because it excuses a lot of what Putin did, right? And a lot of these so-called conservatives who are really just leftists, right? Well, maybe those are strong words, but they are ultimately on the left. How many of these douchebags sitting over there discussing world events and being all these trads ostensibly, how many of them actually produce their own food, right? Or try to actually do something other than talking in order to reverse the course on which humanity is on right now, right? These motherfuckers will be so conservative, right? Or trad or whatever, pretend to be all this other shit, anti-vegan, this and that, and then they'll openly talk about how they eat McDonald's and buy Coca-Cola and like fucking sheep, right? Like they seem to get it, but they don't get it. So you could go check out this conversation, and it's like detailed geopolitical analysis. That's if you just completely ignore the COVID context, right? This is probably as objective as it can be, as accurate as this shit can be, right? And it's in that sense is wonderful. But how the fuck do you just ignore the COVID context, right? So, for example, a couple of weeks or something like that before this war, all of a sudden they relaxed all these restrictions, right? All of a sudden you could travel, you didn't have to show a passport, this and that, blah blah blah. Everything is honky dory all of a sudden, right? And then bam, war, refugees coming in. Oh well, can you imagine the kind of bottleneck for these refugees they would have had to deal with had they had to, show that they're vaccinated, take COVID tests and deal with all that bullshit, right? So you're not allowed to move, right? But and go places and be free. And then once they create a problem, right? And let's be honest, both the East and West created this fucking problem. There's all this talk about NATO expanding East. What about Putin moving West? No one's talking about that. Why not? Maybe people on the left are, I don't know. I don't fucking care, right? But like him going into Georgia? Whoa. Isn't that in a way... Even going into Ukraine right now, he is spreading his sphere of influence, right? Right next to NATO. So both of these sides are doing the same thing. It's just that the West has more power, so they're gonna move more and more boldly, maybe in many, or on average, right? Look, if Putin had the kind of military might that China has, he probably would already been storming Berlin. Why not? Again, going back to Dugin, who I'm not saying Putin agrees with everything that this guy says, but according to that guy, the Eurasian Empire should extend all the way to fucking Dublin. Forget Berlin or Lublin. Fucking hell. You know what I mean? Probably because it once did. You know what I'm saying? Fuck. And then these cocksuckers from the Levant showed up and probably started shit. You know what I mean? Probably. Just my opinion. Anyway, where were we? So, like, yeah, these guys will give you what a lot of people want to hear, right? But if they completely ignore the COVID context, then they're, at the end of the day, their analysis is bullshit. You can wipe your ass with that, right? It's missing one vital component, right? Because these people are system shills. So they're more on the right, and maybe they tell more truth than the completely sinister left, as is their name in Italian anyway, right? But that doesn't mean that they're telling you the whole truth. These people, I don't even have to check their history to tell you that these people believe that planes flew into the Twin Towers and upon incinerating ejected Saudi nationals' passports or whoever they were, right? Taliban passports without even one page of that little booklet scorched, right? This is what they believe. But there's some kind of like credible political analyst because they tell you some truth. Get the fuck out of here, man. People, how fucking dumb can you be? So, where were we? I don't give it. Like, it's an interesting analysis, and if you're just interested in like the geopolitical intrigue and the games that the elites play, while at the same time fucking you, then yeah, it's very interesting stuff. But don't forget that while you're listening to this shit, both of these sides are fucking you. Don't forget that very important part. They completely ignore all of that. right? Because, and I'm not saying that they're evil people or that they're doing this consciously or whatever. They're just cogs in the machine. This is their training. This is what they know. And to venture out of their sphere of knowledge, they don't know anything else. Like, I'll give you a completely weird, off topic kind of, and maybe even ultimately wrong example of something that just happened to a certain boxer, right? This guy has spent his entire life since he was like 4 years old, man, boxing. Okay? Like, the things that he does in the ring, he has polished to perfection. The things that he can do, right? Not saying that he can do everything. Apparently, he was cooking something in a pressure cooker, and the shit exploded in his face, and he fucked himself up, right? Talk about being specialized and not knowing how to use a fucking pressure cooker, because ultimately at the end of the day, especially if you got hundreds of thousands of dollars, right, there should be no pressure cooker malfunction. Just buy a fucking good one and make sure it functions properly before, and use it properly, and you won't have these issues, right? But apparently he doesn't know how to do any of that, right? And I'm guessing, shout out to Guillermo Rigondeau, because that's way outside of his scope of knowledge, like cooking rice, for example. I think it's likely that he was forced to cook for himself because, well, rumors are that factually he's been losing lately because he's old and way past his prime. And rumors are he's going broke, right? So homeboy's probably forced to cook for himself, right? Because all the hoes that were there with him, I'm guessing, I don't know, if they haven't left him yet, they probably don't want to cook for him anymore. Maybe he can no longer hire anyway, long fucking story short. Like, this is just cogs in the machine. There's certain things they can do, and that's all they can do, right? This is why I talk about bigger picture, people. So, while one side, going back to Putin and the cabal, right? I mean, why is he wearing the yarmulke in all these different photos and lighting up the menorah, right? Why is he buddy with Israel, who, by the way, instituted some of the most harshest restrictions on planet Earth, right? But he's buddy with those motherfuckers, right? And Klaus Schwab, by the way. Like, if he's chasing, like, that's how these stories don't make any sense, right? Because people got brainwashed with this idea that Hitler was somehow anti-Jewish, because that's what they put out ostensibly, when at the same time they were signing agreements that allowed for Jews to have the state of Israel. Germans, right? Let me remind you that Yiddish is a German language. Did you not know that? Yiddish is a German language. Germany, prior to World War II, was moving all kinds of Germans into Palestine. Well, why? With military training, nonetheless. Well, why? Right? Why did all these Nazis go into Israel after World War II and became like state police and shit? Or paramilitary or military? Well, why? Just because Hitler chased out certain Masonic lodges, right? That doesn't mean he wasn't a Mason of a different ilk himself. Like, Masonry isn't all one kind of Masonry. There's all two main branches and probably a shit ton more. So just because Putin chased out Soros, or Soros, however the fuck you say it, right? Well, he let in Klaus Schwab. Whoop-de-fucking-do. You know what I mean? So it's like, apparently his mama Jewish. So on the one hand, you have the QAnon 2.0 saying that he's chasing the cabal out of there while Jewish himself, right? And on the other hand, you have the people that are a little bit more on the right, but not alt-right, saying that he is preparing Ukraine for Jewish invasion out of Israel once, that explodes into war. And as Kissinger told you, right, Israel will cease to exist very, very by 2030, I think, something like that. Was it Kissinger, or I forget who? I think it was Kissinger, right? So then there's another conspiracy theory that land, which is, where the Khazars came from, or these self-proclaimed Jews who weren't really that, right? Whatever the fuck that means, let's not even get into all of that, right? Because at the end of the day, you can make an argument that, well, if we're all descended from Abraham, then in some way, shape, or form, in some sense, right, the people of Europe and North Africa, right, and maybe Western Asia to a degree, in some sense, we're all Jews, right? So it's just like, it's a stupid fucking rabbit hole to go down in trying to explain what's happening geopolitically. It might be interesting for an anthropologist to trace the histories and lineages of all these people. But at one point, right, if you were monotheist, that's what Jew meant, monotheist. So I mean, maybe we're all Zoroastrians, right? Now that was the first monotheistic religion, right? Those were the OGJs, right? Like, fuck these rabbit holes, man. Like, they're interesting and all, but don't put too much stock into all that stuff trying to explain what's happening now. Because what is the big picture, right? What's the big picture? The Great Reset is the big picture. So, I'll get excited about Putin when he says no to vax passports, mandatory vaccination, and he starts, as somebody said in the comments, bombing Klaus Schwab's palace. So basically, long story short, is that this political theater, unless you get the fucking script in your hands, we don't really know what's going on down to the nitty gritty and every single detail, right? And I mean, how is Putin, anti-Jew somehow, and yet there's this sort of thing going on, right? And or like, how is it that the Azov battalion are the Nazis and not these people, right? Or how is it that he's pro-Israel and yet there's you can't deny the elements of Nazism in what's happening in Russia right now, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what it is really is nationalism, right? Corporate nationalism. So, like, these things that are happening, they're so complex, and none of us really know what is happening exactly. Who's on whose side? Speaking of who's on whose side, right? You got Zelensky, who, in my opinion, he's just an actor, in my opinion. That's all he is. Given some kind of a speech, fiddling with his nose, right? Coked out of his fucking mind, probably. Look at this fucking guy. At one point, forgetting Ukrainian and speaking Russian, right? Probably his mother tongue. I don't know. Is this real? Is it a psyop? Is it just a distraction? Right? Well, who gives a fuck? Did he mandate the vaccine? Oh, just like Putin? Just like the West? All right. Simple, right? Real simple. So this idea that, like, I'm making things black and white. Nope. Sorry. I'm not making things black and white. I'm being presented with a certain idea, and I'm showing you how it's essentially, it's probably bullshit, right? If you have an argument to show me how what I said is wrong and this conspiracy theory is correct, okay. Or at the very least, I'm showing you how you could just as well say something that's completely opposite of this theory, that he's chasing the cabal out of Ukraine while at the same time, kissing up to Israel wearing a yarmulke. But then again, at the end of the day, maybe it makes fucking sense, because it's not like there's all the Jews in the world agree on everything and all the Christians agree on every, and like, speaking of black and fucking white, right? But this is the problem with most people, right? They're so brainwashed. They're accusing me of being binary when it's them who are that. People have been brainwashed to expect in any conflict, be it sports, the political sphere, movies, and some more fucking movies, right? It's rare that a director moves away from that sort of portrayal, right? black versus white, and creates these characters that are more complex, right? Then people say, oh wow, what a great movie, right? Because it doesn't follow the same kind of script, and more closely appropriates reality, actually, right? So this good guy versus bad guy, you're the one brainwashed with this nonsense. For me, insofar as this conflict goes, this is black, black, and some more fucking black. And then some more black on top of that, right? But we'll just stick to three to simplify things. Putin, black. Zelensky, black. And right, let's just make it even simpler. East, black. West, black. And all the fucking people, all the sheep, whether they're on this side or that side, not sure where they are, you know what I mean? 99 fucking percent of them are black too. It's all fucking black. That's the whole point. There is no hero here. There is no savior here. There's some people trying to speak sense into some of you motherfuckers with filthy ass corrupted degenerate mouths like myself. Yeah, I'm part of this too. I'm trying to break out, but I can't do it by myself. So no, this isn't, and I know that that person didn't mean exactly that, right? But it's just, it gave me an idea for a video, right? I think what they meant to say is that I'm oversimplifying shit, right? I already explained why that makes sense for all of us. And debunking these nonsense theories, or at the very least showing you that something completely, however, if you think that what I present to you, giving you evidence and arguments for an alternate solution, right? If you think that that's ridiculous, fine. But what does that make the conspiracy theory that doesn't have anything like that to back it even more fucking ridiculous? I'll accept that what I'm saying, that Putin is erasing, destroying evidence, right, of some kind of bioweapon engineering or what have you, right? I'll accept that. But at the very least, I gave you reasons to believe this. But if you think that that's ridiculous, fine. What the fuck does that make your conspiracy theory based on nothing except this idea that there always has to be a good guy in every fucking conflict? Man, I'm done fucking ranting. This shit's ridiculous, man. All of this is just, all of it is black. Duh, that's the point. Thanks for watching.